You got to respect what happened last night and what Mamdani was able to do. In my home district, New York's 10th, which is the southern part of Manhattan and parts of Brooklyn, Brad Lander, who drafted off the socialism and drafted off Mamdani and tried and successfully killed a ballot initiative for open primaries. Now you know why. Welcome to Independent Americans. Welcome to episode 559er. I'm your host, Paul Rieckhoff, and it is Wednesday, June 24th. What the fuck, Wednesday? What the fuck, Wednesday? Which is, of course, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot Wednesday, or What the Fuck Wednesday, because we never know what the fuck is going to happen on a Wednesday. But I am coming to you from New York City, USA, where the weather is getting hotter, especially after last night's primary that has sent shockwaves across the political world. But if you listen to or watch this show, you were not surprised. I told you this could happen. I told you this probably would happen. And I told you about the other pieces that are happening that most of the mainstream media isn't even covering or doesn't understand. I'll get to more of that coming up, but I have a full breakdown of last night's primaries, the Iran deal, and much more. But today's artist, since it is getting hot, is, of course, Cornell Ilral Haynes Jr., born November 2nd, 1974, otherwise known as Nelly. Nelly, the man himself, rapper, singer, actor, grew up in St. Louis, was a member of the Midwestern hip-hop group, the St. Lunatics, signed with Universal as a solo act in 93, then came out with Country Grammar in 2000, and it was everywhere. With Country Grammar, the hot shit, Ride With Me, and of course, Hot in Here. And of Dilemma, of course, don't forget about Dilemma with Kelly Rowland. And then he also had Air Force Ones and lots of other stuff. But Nelly is good for the summer. Nelly is good for this moment because it's getting hot in here. In New York, in America, in Washington, in the world, June is here and it is getting hot in here. And I'm going to try to bring you the five eyes that I bring you in every single show to help you contrast the heat, to help keep you cool. Independence, integrity, information, inspiration, and impact. I got a little bit of a hoarse voice because I've been all over the place. It's been a busy week. Thank you to all of you who caught me last night on CNN, but I want to go deeper on a lot of things and help you sort through this hot times and help you stay vigilant. All right, first off, thank you to everybody who's new to the show. The show continues to expand, especially in times like this when people, frankly, don't understand what the hell's going on in primaries, and I can break it down. We continue to also focus on really important national security stuff, and I think we're bringing a bit of an independent breath of fresh air. So thank you to all the newcomers. Be sure to subscribe everywhere, especially on YouTube, Spotify. Check us out on Substack, and follow me on social, because nights like last night, I am constantly covering what's happening as the results come in. But today, let's talk about our hot and getting hotter top topic. All right, the top topic is the left rolled last night in New York City. And it's about something bigger, but it is hot in here after a very big primary day. And let's talk about Mayor Mamdani. Mayor Mamdani, who has now been crowned the king of the Democratic Socialists, who inherited the energy of AOC, who came out of the Bronx like a thunderbolt, and is building on decades of work and organizing by Bernie Sanders. Remember, there was once a Democratic Socialist who folks thought could be president. If you're a longtime listener of this show, you remember that I warned you that Bernie Sanders would be the end of the Democrats' viability for president. Thankfully, in my view, they chose Biden and he won. But I think, and I still think, that Bernie Sanders would be untenable as a national candidate, as I think is true of most of these Democratic Socialist candidates as well. But here's what you need to know. Last night, Mamdani ran the table, as I expected he would. He understood the rigged, closed primaries. That's what he did. He understood it last year. He understands it now. And building on his masterful strategy from last summer that resulted in him becoming mayor in a historic move, and years of DSA, Democratic Socialists of America, planning and infrastructure, Mamdani and others executed the plan to perfection. Now, that's because the game is rigged, especially against independents like me, but you got to respect the player. Just as a reminder, if you didn't hear yesterday's episode, go back and check it out, where I talked about how millions of independents were closed out again yesterday in New York, in Utah, and in Maryland. Maryland is an epicenter that is very, very important. I hope to have Governor Wes Moore coming up on the show, potentially very soon, where I'll press him on open primaries on more. But last night you saw, again, how badly the game is rigged. It's not fraudulent, but it's rigged, meaning the outcome is determined by the players who created the game, right? The players are also the referees. These are party-driven primaries, and less people are voting in them. Less and less people are joining parties, and the parties are becoming more extreme. But you got to respect what happened last night and what Mamdani was able to do. In my home district, New York's 10th, which is the southern part of Manhattan and parts of Brooklyn, Brad Lander, who drafted off the socialism and drafted off Mamdani and tried and successfully killed a ballot initiative for open primaries. Now you know why. Because he will be my next congressman. I don't like it, but it's a fact. He won 64% over incumbent Dan Goldman, who had 36%. Now, I saw this coming. Many folks who know the primary system saw this coming. Lander was very aggressive in attacking Goldman, especially on Israel, which is not popular among young people in the socialist base and in the left wing of the Democratic Party. Who are the people who voted yesterday? Really important to note. The people who voted yesterday are mostly the most partisan, the most highly motivated, the most far left. The same is true of the far right in places like Utah. But what you're seeing in primaries over and over again is that the far left and the far right are dominating, and they're driving our politics farther and farther away. But the far left is on the march, and it's bigger than Mamdani, and it's growing. It's happening in Seattle. It's happening in Washington, D.C. It's happening in Los Angeles, in the places where the primary game is rigged. And the DSA, they know how to play it, especially in New York City. They know how to organize. Socialists are really good at organizing, but only 55,000 people voted in my race to pick my member of Congress. And I wasn't one of them because I'm an independent, just like tens of thousands of other independents that were blocked out of these closed and determinative elections. But the DSA, they got the cheat code, man. They got the cheat code, and they're playing it. Like 90+% of House races, the primary is the whole game. And this game here in New York, in these 3 congressional seats, it's over. It's over now. There will be no independent. There will be no real Republican. There won't even be a moderate Dem. Keep in mind, Dan Goldman is not even moderate. He is left of center. Now, this is one of the most liberal places in the country, but it's not just about that. And yes, people want a change of the guard. They want younger voices, but it's not just about that. And people want folks who are going to focus on affordability, but it's not just about that. It's about understanding the rules of the game and playing them and leveraging them. And now you see why Brad Lander works so hard to kill the open primaries ballot initiative in New York. If there's open primaries, there's no Mamdani. If there's open primaries, there's no right-wing Tea Party people either. But if there's open primaries, the level playing field is in effect, and everybody gets a vote, including millions of independents and Republicans. But as the divide gets deeper, more moderates and unaffiliateds, like me and like many of you, are without representation, and our democracy is suffering. We have an urgent democracy and election problem in America, and it's a primary problem. It's something I've talked about a lot on this show, and it's hurting all of us. If you want to change it, you got to support truly voter-driven open primaries. Stop letting the players be the referees. Give every American an equal vote in our publicly funded elections, and help us all stay vigilant. All right, one other thing I want to focus on, because you're not hearing about this in the news. As of 6 o'clock last night, I mentioned this a bit on CNN with Aaron Burnett and others. As of 6 o'clock last night, the total voting check-ins was 420,000 people in New York City, according to the Board of Elections. That's in a city with 5 million voters. 5 million voters. And less than 500,000 determine the whole ballgame. In Staten Island, right, only 7,000 people voted in all of Staten Island. Now, this is a problem for democracy, especially in a city with 5 million voters, where 1 million voters didn't even get a vote. 1 million independents didn't even get a vote. The extremes are hijacking our elections and our democracy. The system is not fraudulent, but it's rigged, and the extremes are taking advantage. That includes Trump on the right. America's got a primary problem, and it's taken our country off a cliff. And it's another reason why we all need to stay vigilant. This is going to be a wild summer of politics, news, and elections. Primaries continue to roll on. We have the biggest midterms ever. The intersection of sports and politics is happening every single day. And you can trade on the biggest political races and activities on Kalshi. On Kalshi, you can trade major primaries, election outcomes, and the biggest political storylines as they happen, leading up to the biggest midterms ever. You can pick who's going to control Congress. You can pick who's going to win the Senate race in Maine, Graham Pletner or Susan Collins. You can bet on the World Cup. You can trade on the World Cup and much more. It's all on Kalshi. You're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position. For a limited time, download the Kalshi app and use the code for this show, INDEPENDENT, and get $10 when you trade 10. Kalshi, Kalshi, where you can trade on anything, including just about everything you hear about here on Independent Americans. 18 and over only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Even contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see Kalshi.com/regulatory. But check out our friends at Kalshi, who are big supporters of Independent Americans, and go to Kalshi, where you can trade on just about anything, and they'll help you stay vigilant. All right, let's talk a little bit more about the primaries. In New York, there was another race I want to talk about. Now, down in Maryland, Governor Wes Moore stamped his ticket. He was going to be the governor, the nominee for the Democratic Party. He's going to roll on. He's going to get a huge reelection, and then potentially going to roll into the presidency or running for the presidency. I hope to have him on to talk about that. But in upstate New York, something interesting happened. Kate Connolly won the Democratic primary to face Republican Mike Lawler, who's been a guest on this show before. Now, I grew up in what is now New York 17th. It's in the Hudson Valley, north of the city. Now, Connolly is exactly the kind of moderate veteran Democrat that can knock off a non-veteran, Trump-supporting, unlikable incumbent like Mike Lawler. She's got 6 combat tours and was among the first women to lead a special operations team. She went to West Point. She's tough. She's working class. She spent a lot of time in Peekskill, near where I grew up. But interestingly and importantly, in that district and in that area, there are tons of vets, cops, firefighters, and many of them are independents. And like Mikey Sherrill, the helicopter pilot and moderate Democrat in New Jersey, I think that Kate Connolly will do well, especially with them. And my money's on her to flip this district. I'd love to have her join me on this show soon, and we can dig deeper and help us all stay vigilant. All right, the other thing you're learning is that America wants fighters. We hear that a lot, but it's not just socialist fighters. Some of these DSA candidates, I think, are going to be really interesting to watch. But there will be 3, at least now, in Congress from New York, including from my district, which makes me kind of insane because there are a lot of people of all backgrounds, and we got Brad Lander down there as our congressman. But America wants fighters, real fighters. And Brad Lander thinks he's a fighter. But let's talk about another kind of fighter, Nancy LaCore, who was fired by Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, or the acting Secretary of Culture War. She won a Democratic House primary in South Carolina. She's a retired admiral, a Navy admiral. And I've said this before, it's something I want to bring your attention to. What I've called the patriotic purge will be very formidable in November as candidates. Anyone who's been fired by Hegseth or by DOJ from the Department of Defense, from the FBI, from the VA, from the National Park Rangers, like Brian Bangs has talked about from South Dakota, whether they're running as a Democrat or as an independent, the patriotic purged are the fighters that America is looking for. Watch this space and don't let it fall below your radar. All right, but below the radar, some good news for open primaries and independents. Yesterday, our friends at Open Primaries shared breaking news that the Washington, D.C. City Council voted to fund and implement the open primaries portion of Initiative 83. This is good news. That means that in 2028, close to 100,000 independent voters will be able to choose whether or not to vote in the primaries. Congrats to Lisa Rice and Grow Democracy, New York City. This is some good news for our independent movement. The fight goes on for open primaries around the country and around your states and your cities. Check out Open Primaries for more. We'll be linked in the bio, and I'll have John Updike back on the show soon. It's another reason to stay united, to stay focused on the future, and of course, stay vigilant. My voice is pretty banged up, but I'm going to keep moving on. Trump is really bad at legislation. He's bad at getting things done in D.C. He's never a senator. He's not like Joe Biden, who spent decades in the Senate. He's not very patient. He doesn't like to compromise. So he's bad at legislation. But he's not bad at strategy. I think too often people dismiss his strategic focus. And right now he's in a battle with Republicans, and he's saying he doesn't want to pass a very popular bipartisan housing bill because he wants them to comply and pass his SAVE Act, Safeguard America Voter Eligibility Act, which is a federal election overhaul. That is very divisive, I think is an attack on the elections by Trump, and will require voters to provide documentary proof of citizenship, such as a passport, birth certificate, naturalization papers to register in federal elections. Now the proof of citizenship, I don't think is that dramatic. Okay, as long as it's done properly, it's done respectfully. But he also wants to restrict and eliminate online and mail-in voting by forcing registrants to present qualifying documents in person. It's going to drive a lot of people away. You shouldn't have to walk in with your passport to be able to vote. And think about all of our military folks that are stationed around the world who often vote by mail-in ballot. It would also purge voter rolls. It would require states to actively identify and remove non-citizen voters from the federal database. And then there would be penalties. Now, this is important because it would scare people from voting. It expands the legal right of action, allowing citizens to sue election officials who register applicants without receiving documentary proof of citizenship. This is designed to intimidate. Some of it sounds like it's sensible. What it's really designed to do is drive people away who don't vote for Trump. He's attacking the elections because he knows they're a circuit breaker. He keeps coming back to this because he knows if there are free and fair elections in the fall, he'll probably be impeached. He could be arrested. He'll definitely be slowed down. He will be held accountable. That's why he's attacking the elections. He's always doing it. He's consistent about it. It's why he did the slush fund for insurrectionists who attacked the Capitol, because he wants to weaponize his base to attack if needed. This is Plan C, folks, and this is another element of it, and it's another reason to stay vigilant. All right, the SAVE Act is in the headlines a lot today, and I got to speak on this for a second, because before the SAVE Act, there was the SAV Act, the Clay Hunt SAVE Act. This was a historic bipartisan effort that I was a part of to tackle the terrible, constant, and rising threat of suicide facing America's veterans. It was a kind of bipartisan legislation that used to be possible. It was rare, but possible. I was there at the White House. I think it was back in 2016, but I was there in the White House with President Obama, with John McCain, with Johnny Isakson, those are Republicans, and with Nancy Pelosi, all on the same stage, Tammy Duckworth and others with Clay Hunt's brave family, his mom and his dad and his family. All of them were there. We had hundreds of IAVA leaders there at the White House, and we did it all in the name of our brave and inspiring friend, Marine Corps veteran Clay Hunt, who we lost to suicide, but he himself had been a fighter to save lives by combating suicide. But that was the SAVE Act. That was a different kind of SAVE Act. It was an important SAVE Act. It was a unifying SAVE Act. The good old days in Washington when people could work together and get important shit done. I've got more on the SAVE Act linked in the show notes. Please check it out and please spread the word. And remember that if you're a veteran that's struggling, that needs help, there is help out there. You can reach out to this show. There's links in the show notes. You can contact the Veterans Crisis Line and reach out to your buddies and look out for each other and help us all stay vigilant. All right, I've known a lot of fighters, people who are real fighters. Trump thinks he's a UFC fighter, or he thinks he's as fit as one. I had to share this with you. Check this out.
This guy, well, I just have to set it up a little bit if I don't mind. Because I'm thinking, you know, I'm a similar size. I weigh more than he does, actually. So therefore, I have a tremendous physical advantage over him. His muscles are slightly harder and slightly younger. He's a lot younger. But I think I can do it because I'm a great athlete. He knows I'm a very good golfer. And I'm much better off on the golf course against him than I'm on the wrestling mat.
So he's comparing himself with Bo Nickel, the UFC fighter who recently won at the UFC spectacle at the White House. But there's more. He thinks he could beat Bo Nickel in wrestling. The idea of Trump wrestling anybody is like just so much fodder for Iranian AI videos. But here, check this out. Play that clip, please, Chris.
Just ask the audience a question. Come here. Come here, Bo. So here's my question. If I work out for the next couple of months, really work hard, lifting those weights away, and really, really work, could I beat Bo or Anthony in wrestling? You're very disloyal. You're very disloyal.
When he asks the crowd, could I beat Bo Nickel in wrestling? They say, no. He says, you're very disloyal. And everybody in the crowd looks around and goes, oh, shit, they're going to come for me? But he's talking about toughness and he's talking about muscle. He's been talking about this a lot now. I don't know if it's because he's getting old or he's sounding increasingly, I don't know, different. He's really obsessed with men's bodies lately. And for a guy who's had a pretty bad record on LGBTQ rights, and as we enter Pride Month, which he refuses to acknowledge, it's worth noting that he's been talking a lot about men's bodies. He's been touching men when they come out of the ring. And you know what I'm talking about, but he's talking about muscle. Check this out.
I mean, these are the strongest, toughest men on earth. No women in the crowd, which is nice. But these are the toughest men on earth, and it's tremendous pressure. And, you know, the muscles, you got the muscles, you guys, you got the big, strong muscles, but you got this muscle, too, because it takes much more than just the normal muscle to win those matches.
Of course, in this clip, he says no women, which is nice. And I will remind you that there were no women on the card in the big UFC fight at the White House. It was a spectacular series of fights, 7 fights, no decisions, all concluded, but not a woman on that card. Watch this space. Trump's talking crazy. It's What the Fuck Wednesday. Stay vigilant.
Stay vigilant. Stay vigilant.
All right, let's talk about Iran for a second. There was a big vote yesterday. The Senate finally voted to check Trump on Iran. It was a 48-50 vote. About damn time the Senate stood up. But as I said on CNN, there's an asterisk. Yesterday, Mitch McConnell did not vote, and Senator Dave McCormick from Pennsylvania did not vote. And Trump yelled at him for not voting. But you know where McCormick was? He was with Trump. So it just shows you that I don't think Trump is very good at legislation, but nevertheless, they finally passed a War Powers Act. It won't slow him down. It won't stop him, but it does show that the politicians are finally catching up to the rest of the country that thinks this war is a total debacle. Now, the key circuit breaker moment will be at the end of this year when he pushes for the defense budget, and you need to watch that space and stay vigilant. All right, let's talk about something else that has been important and happening. There was a flu outbreak at Lackland Air Base in Texas, just weeks after Secretary Hegseth announced that the U.S. will no longer be required to be vaccinated for the flu. What do you know? Don't vaccinate people for the flu. You know what happens? They get the flu, and there's an outbreak. Let's play the Hegseth music, because Hegseth's doing Hegsethian things. It's another example of why their stupid health policies also endanger our national security. Hegseth continues to do Hegsethian things. And thankfully, there is breaking news that this policy has been overturned. The Army, Navy, and Air Force will once again require flu shots for basic trainees. That would be nice, because if we want to fight bad guys, we can't have our military being sick. Meanwhile, the Senate Armed Services Committee has threatened to withhold most of Hegseth's travel funds until he provides information on a series of deadly strikes, including the one in the girls' school in Iran and the alleged drug boats. So it's good to know that continues to be at least on someone's radar, but also really important and something that is probably below the radar. Hegseth's purge continues. He has now forced the retirement of CD Donahue, who you may remember was the last soldier to leave Afghanistan. He was in that night vision photo, getting on a plane. This is the latest in a long line of military departures. Nancy Youssef and Missy Ryan at The Atlantic have the story. This is a guy who was called by General Tony Thomas a generational leader, one of the best ever. They call him CD, and CD being forced to retire sent shockwaves all across the military. Hegseth has fired a lot of generals, but the reaction to this one has been very different. Donahue is deeply loved, trusted, respected, and it's another time that we need badly to hear from all the former chairmen of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the SecDefs, and the flag grades. They got to speak out. And we should all hope for Donahue to do the same himself ASAP. We need to hear from you, sir, because too many have been silent. You've been brave. You've been patriotic. You've served your country. We need you to serve again. Step up, speak out. We want to hear from you. And of course, I'd welcome you on the show to help us all stay vigilant. If you're not angry, you're not paying attention. We talk about it a lot. And I talk about veterans issues. I just want to focus on that for a second. We talked about suicide. We lose 17 veterans every day to suicide, and increasing among men and women. The data has been lagging, but we've seen that it's a problem. We need to help to save our buddies, and I want to continue to focus on it. But below the radar over the weekend, 3 incredible Medal of Honor heroes were awarded their Medal of Honor at the White House. James Capers Jr., John Walter Ripley, and Nicholas Dockery. The Medal of Honor has only been awarded to 3,536 among the more than 40 million Americans who've served in the armed forces since the Civil War. Fewer than 1/100th of 1% have received the nation's highest award for valor. And Trump fucked it up. Yep. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, there's no other way to say it. He fucked it up. He can't even put a Medal of Honor on a decorated soldier properly. And as our friend Aaron Rupar on X posted, Trump spectacularly failed his latest cognitive test. Play the video, please, Chris. All right, for Whiskey Tango Foxtrot Wednesday, we got to talk about this. It's not like he hasn't done this before, and props to Major Nicholas Dockery for an incredible demonstration of keeping your military bearing. Imagine him, this incredibly emotional moment. Everybody's there, and the president's choking you out with a Medal of Honor. I mean, it's crazy. It's like an SNL skit, but it's our reality. And it's just another example of the crazy shit he does on Wednesdays and every days, and another reason we need to stay vigilant. All right, let's talk sports real quick. The NBA draft was last night. I just want to shout it out because it's so exciting to see these young men and their families. It's also exciting to have the Knicks picking last and not really be worried about the draft because we just won the NBA championship. But AJ Debonsa, the forward from BYU, went number 1. Darren Peterson, the guard from KU, went 2. Cameron Boozer at 3. That was really fun to watch. Caleb Wilson, incredible young freshman from North Carolina, is going to the Bulls, the same place that had another amazing player from North Carolina named Michael Jordan. So that's going to be fun to watch. The World Cup has been rolling on. I want to pull out one. Ghana tied England 0-0. Amazing as England fails to knock out Ghana. Portugal surged. Croatia beat Panama. Colombia beat Congo. And there are a bunch of other great matches coming up. Today, Bosnia-Herzegovina beat Qatar, which is always one of those interesting World Cup matchups. And Switzerland beat Canada. The World Cup's been great. And I want to finish today with something good. Something good. Oh, something sweet. Feel the fire. All right, Father's Day was this weekend, and I didn't talk about it really. And I just want to reflect on the fact that Father's Day is something good. There's no greater adventure and honor in the world than being a dad. And I want to wish a belated happy Father's Day to all the dads out there everywhere, especially to my brother, my dad, and all the other dads in my life who've shown me how it's done. And to all the dads who are away from their kids on Father's Day especially. It's too big to put into words. I've said this. But as I've said, it's a rare thing being a dad. It's like combat or a pandemic or dying. You don't really know what it's like until you go through it, until you've experienced it. And once you know, you know. And I've said it before, I want to say it again. Being a dad is the most important, the hardest, the most amazing, the best thing I've ever done. And I'm eternally grateful to my wife, Lori, and to my amazing boys for giving me the honor of my life. And I can't wait for the adventures ahead. And the Father's Day in New York was really special because New York is still buzzing from the Knicks and because it's happiness and it's joy and the weather is really good. But there were so many people in New York City that they might actually have to extend the parades in the future beyond City Hall. And I just want to say I would support this because we need to make it more fun and more public. Less politicians would also be nice. Mamdani was exceptional, but the rest of them were cringe. It was crazy that Josh Hart didn't speak and that Karl Anthony Towns didn't speak. But looks like they're going to the White House, and we should keep our eye on what happens there. I will be sure to cover it. And maybe you can bet on it on Kalshi. But one other thing I want to share that was something good. At the end of the weekend, it was windy, and the blue and orange confetti just kept floating around everywhere for hours afterward and days afterward. Blue and orange confetti floating around, all around downtown, like how the ash floated everywhere down here after 9/11. But it was the happy reverse. It was the reverse of 9/11. And damn, we really needed and deserved it. And I want that energy to continue. I hope it continues to spread and it can engulf the World Cup and we can keep it moving in the summer into America 250 because we need it, even on a What the Fuck Wednesday, to help us all stay vigilant. All right, that's all I got. A couple of quick end notes. I was on CNN last night. I'll be on again tonight. Shout out to Aaron Burnett for always giving me a space as an independent and not making me do the other thing where I have to battle a Democrat or Republican. News Nation today, MS Now tomorrow. We got guests coming up. Governor Wes Moore is coming back. I just got word. We're going to have Jeffrey Wright and Admiral Stavridis and others. Check us out everywhere, YouTube, Spotify. You know the deal. Subscribe. Leave a comment. Leave a rating. Do me a solid. If you're on Substack, chip in a few bucks. If you're on Patreon, chip a few bucks. Check out Kalshi. Check out Noble Mobile. Check them all out because America's divided, but I'm bringing them together with your help. Even after a brutal primary, we got to keep pushing for change, especially if you're among the 45% of Americans who are independent, more and more by the day, especially after every primary. Our independent movement is that hope for the future. You know the deal. A hope that you see in the World Cup. Country over party, people over politics, light over heat. That movement is growing, and hope is the oxygen of our democracy. If you enjoyed this episode, share it far and wide. Help people understand what the fuck just happened in these primaries, and invite others to declare their independence. And stay vigilant, my friends, because eternal vigilance is the price of freedom. And no, you're not alone in your vigilance. We're all vigilant, and we're all in this together, even on Whiskey Tango Foxtrot Wednesday. I'm your host, Paul Rieckhoff. Thank you for tuning in to Independent Americans and for supporting this movement. I will see you on CNN or tomorrow here, and especially on YouTube. Get ready. USA plays on Thursday night. That's going to be exciting. Go Team USA. Happy Hump Day. Happy What the Fuck Wednesday. Stay vigilant, America. Stay vigilant.
Archipelago, he tells me the left and right are dreams for those without a clue. And when you wake, it's time to grow. And it's not cool to believe in school, but if I can say one thing, I've seen the children of the revolution and the good trouble they can bring. He says the red and blue are dead and independent is an attitude. An island in the sea of rhetoric and archipelago, he tells me the left and right are dreams for those without a clue. And when you wait, it's time to grow.
Powered by Righteous Media.